It's mock time. Grossi Posse Packer Nation. Welcome to the episode of Packcast, the podcast where you don't have to be a Packers fan, but it sure does help. I am your host, Tom Grossi, and today, finally, after the clamoring and the comments expressing your innermost desire for a mock draft, just like Blues Will Smith in the upcoming live-action remake of Aladdin, your wish is granted. But before we get to that, I want to do a big shout out and thank you to all my patrons over at patreon.com/TomGrossiComedy. Thank you. If you would like to support me and get some cool rewards in return, check out patreon.com/TomGrossiComedy. Now, if you were an astute viewer this morning, you would have seen that I uploaded the mock draft for about 25 minutes. About 500 of you checked it out. And I was like, oh, great, everything's good. And then I realized I done messed up real bad. And that I left out, I literally just missed, some big players. And probably for doing this for 6 hours straight, I literally just overlooked them. And so that is my mistake. I apologize. This is a completely different draft. And, yeah. Take two. Let's do this. Now, again, real quick, let me just say something about mock drafts. Mock drafts are basically pure entertainment. And what I mean by that is that nobody knows what's going to happen. Absolutely not Mel Kiper, not Tom Grossi. Have no idea. This mock draft that I presented to you is without trades, just because if I started getting into that, I would be doing this for another 6 hours. Maybe I'll do trades sometime in the future. But one trade is going to screw this entire thing up. Or one guy slips and is going to screw the entire thing up. So I'm going to tell you exactly how I made this mock draft, just so we're completely transparent with one another. Hours and hours and hours of research and looking at what the teams needed, who was most likely to go in that position, looking at other mocks and seeing kind of where guys were trajecting, but also kind of looking at a whole bunch of tape and seeing what teams or what players fit what teams the best. Also taking a look at which one of these guys have already visited a few of these teams, but then again, just like Jair Alexander last year for the Packers, who didn't even visit the Packers, he got picked anyway. So, in sum, ain't nobody know what's going to happen until draft day. And so, until then, buckle up, Buttercup, because we about to mock. And that goes with the first pick, the Arizona Cardinals. And right off the bat, we got problems. Are the Cardinals going to stick with Rosen, or are they going to draft their QB of the future, Mr. Kyler Murray? Are the Raiders going to sneak up and take him? Or who knows, the Broncos or the Bengals or the Redskins or the Dolphins going to sneak up and trade him? Or the Giants are going to sneak up and trade him? Ain't nobody knows. I got to be completely honest. I have a gut feeling that the Cardinals are going to wind up sticking with Rosen because guess what? They just need an offensive line. Not saying that Rosen is one of the greats like Nathan Peterman, but the fact that Josh Rosen had 0.6 seconds to throw the ball before he was murdered by some defensive back or defensive lineman doesn't really speak to his abilities or his potential. So I think they're going to hold on to him, but either way, I think Kyler Murray is going to be picked as the number one choice for the 2019 NFL draft. And so just for the sakes here, I think the Cardinals are going to draft Kyler Murray because, again, I'm not doing the whole trade thing. And whoever's in the number one spot is going to take him. Numero dos. That's two for our Spanish-speaking friends. I would have never forgotten about you. The San Francisco 49ers. I feel like they're going to take the best rusher in the draft, and that, of course, is Nick Bosa, the defensive end out of Ohio State. This will give the 49ers defense that extra bit of a punch. They don't need a quarterback because they got Jimmy Garoppolo. And so I think this is going to really shore up that defense. Number 3, the Jets, another team that could potentially trade out of the top 5 pick here. But I feel like they'll go with the second best edge rusher in this draft, and that is Mr. Josh Allen, the defensive end out of Kentucky. He will make that pass rush scary. And again, the Jets, while better on defense, I would argue, than offense, even though they locked in Sam Darnold, who showed a lot of flashes and potential last year, There's another guy I could see them. They can go with Quinn Williams here to really make like that defensive line one of like the greatest in the NFL. But I think they're going to wind up going with Josh Allen here just because pass rushers, there's something different about him. That spot, that position is a premium, and I don't see them passing up on it. Which brings us to number 4, the Oakland Raiders. Are they going to trade up and get Kyler Murray? Maybe. And originally, I was like, they're going to get pass rusher here. Like, they're going to get a Montez Sweat. They're going to get a Rashawn Gary. But the more I thought about it, the fact that Quinn Williams is still on the board, the defensive tackle for Alabama, the fact that this guy from the interior can rack up those sacks, I feel like they're going to go with this guy. They're going to go with Williams if he is on the board at this point. So for number 4 right now, I say Quinn Williams because he can be like that Khalil Mack type player, that he can, obviously a great run stuffer, but also get to the quarterback at the same time. Number 5, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I'm going to go with a tier for the Packers fans. Mr. Ed Oliver, the defensive tackle out of Houston. We've talked about him on this show and what a dynamic player he is. His draft stock has been going up, 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 up. And I think if Ed Oliver is in front of you for the Buccaneers, there's no way that you can pass on him to try to shore up that defensive line. And plus, they're going to have some people leaving over the next couple years. Number 6, the New York Giants. What a freaking fracking question mark and train wreck that organization is right now. This was a tough one. I was like, okay, are they going to go QB? Are they going to go edge rusher? Because I feel like it has to be one or the other. And now, obviously, they have 2 picks within the first round, so they could have their cake and eat it too. Or, who knows, maybe they can snatch up Mr. Will Grier in the second round for their QB. But who knows? Here for number 6, what I'm going to say is they're going to get their pass rusher here. I originally had Rashawn Gary, but personally, I think Montez Sweat, his stock has been rising. I like his tape a lot more. Rashawn Gary got pushed out to the side a little bit more than I would like to see for like a top 10 pick. And so Montez Sweat, the guy is just a beast. He's very, very athletic. He's able to get to the QB. He put up impressive numbers while at Mississippi State. So I'm going to go with Montez Sweat here. So they're going to get their premier pass rusher. Number 7, the Jacksonville Jaguars. I feel like this is a super easy and safe pick for the Jaguars as they just paid Nick Foles a whole lot of moolah, and they're going to want to do their very best to protect him. So I'm going to have them go with Jawan Taylor, the best offensive tackle in this draft from Florida. Guy can play over a right tackle, can play a left tackle. He's done both. And so I feel like this is going to be their guy, protect their investment. Number 8, the Lions. Rashawn Gary's still on the board, but I'm not going to have him go here. While the Lions could use a pass rusher, their linebacking core is non-existent. And I've seen him drafted here a couple times now, or at least mocked to go here. And that's going to be Mr. Devin White, the linebacker from LSU. Really dynamic player, great speed, field side to side, really, really quickly. Makes a lot of tackles, a lot of assisted tackles, and some of those tackles are too high. I'm never going to drop that. You can check out the video that I put on him on this channel. But I think that this is a safe bet. If Devin White is still on the board, it addresses a need, and they get a really good player. Number 9, the Bills. This is where I start to dive into the deep end and potentially drown in my own hubris. But this was a tough one. Again, Rashawn Gary still on there, but the Bills, they've brought him in, they've met with him, and they also got Mr. Josh Allen, their QB, who looked like they're going to be rolling with. And what do the Bills need? They need a wide receiver threat. And who's the guy, even though I don't agree with it, who's going to be the first receiver off the board? Mr. DK Metcalf, the wide receiver from Ole Miss. Calvin Johnson-like height, measurables, right? Has amazing speed, does a whole lot of go routes, and that's about it. The route running could definitely use some work, but red zone threat obviously reminds me of a bigger Mike Wallace, and that he could just run go routes all day, can get double covered and let other receivers that the Bills don't have. And they got Cole Beasley to get open. I feel like this would really kind of start that and stimulate that offense a bit. And so I'm gonna say DK Metcalf goes within the top 10. Number 10, you have the Denver Broncos. Even though they signed Flacco, he is obviously not the future of that team at quarterback. And considering they haven't replaced Peyton Manning still, and not being that he's on the team, meaning that they haven't found a decent quarterback since, I feel like that's going to change this year as they go with Mr. Dwayne Haskins, the QB from Ohio State. I think if he's able to fall to 10 and someone doesn't draft up to get him, the Broncos will be super duper happy with this. He can sit behind Flacco for a little bit and learn what not to do. Number 11, the Cincinnati Bengals, another QB-needy team as they have Andy Dalton, everybody's favorite redhead. And now that they got a new coaching regime, I feel like they're going to go with Mr. Drew Lock, the QB for Missouri. He's got a good arm, needs to work on that accuracy a little bit. But again, he could also sit behind Andy Dalton and get advice. That's the best I can say about Andy Dalton. Moving on to everybody's favorite team. No bias. The Green Bay Packers. And again, Rashawn Gary's still on that board. Could we use a pass rusher even though we got a pair of Smiths during the free agency? I say nay. I say we go for a weapon. We go for a man that will make Aaron Rodgers quite happy, considering we need help on that offensive line. And we also need to address tight end because Jimmy Graham ain't the answer, folks. I'm going to go with Mr. T.J. Hockenson, the tight end from Iowa. I am in love with this man. Literally in love with him. You can look at the video I put out on him. The guy can block like a monster and also catches all of the passes. Great at route running, a deep threat, red zone threat, you name it, he is that. And so that's the only reason why I say that he is worthy of a top 15 pick with the tight end. Like Noah Fant, his teammate, I don't think he is, because he has that ability to both block and also be really effective in the pass game. And so I'm going to say, boom, TJ Hockenson, and everyone cheers. Now, number 13, lucky 13. Nope, it's the Dolphins, the dumpster fire right now of the NFL, and I mean that, the dumpster fire. The Cardinals, they're bad. I mean, they beat the Packers, but I don't want to talk about it. I don't know what the Dolphins are going to do. They got Ryan Fitzpatrick. They traded away Tannehill, finally, a few years too late. Like, they could use a QB. They could use the offensive line. They could use an entirely new team. But here, I feel like this is where Rashawn Gary's finally going to fall. This is a guy who could get drafted within the top 10, and I feel like they're going to get a premier pass rusher that they can build their franchise around. Because Ryan Fitzpatrick, I mean, you got to hope he has some magic left. Because, yikes. But moving on to number 14, and that is the Atlanta Falcons. They're going to shore up that defensive line. Now, while, offense, they got rid of a running back. It's not the end of the world. But they finally got rid of their terrible offensive coordinator. And I feel like now they're going to focus on the defensive side of the ball and make sure they get a playmaker, and that's Mr. Christian Wilkins, the defensive tackle from Clemson. And I feel like he could really do some damage, and now the Falcons really don't have to worry about that line anymore. They already have the pass rusher, now they got the run stuffer, and they're good to go. Number 15, the Washington Redskins, again, could be another QB-needy team, but here I feel they're going to go pass rusher as well, since it's like they grow on trees in this draft, and they're going Mr. Brian Burns, a defensive end from Florida State. Showed a lot of flashes, kind of a one-dimensional player, and what I mean by that is not really great in the run game, but constantly getting to the quarterback, putting up big numbers while he was at Florida State, and I think he'll do well for the Redskins here. Number 16, the Panthers. While they could use some more threats for Cam Newton and or protection, I feel like they're going to go defense here, and they're going to also get a pass rusher, and that's Clelin Ferrell, the defensive end from Clemson. Clemson producing all them defensive players. And again, this will kind of shore up that defensive line for the Panthers. And here we go with number 17, the New York Giants again. What the prize was for trading Odell Beckham Jr. Now, they may not go quarterback here. Again, they might get like Will Grier in the second, but I feel like they will if they don't trade up for him. If they stay at number 17, I can see they can go with Daniel Jones, the QB from Duke. A little bit of a better player than Will Grier, even though Will Grier, he's visited with the Giants, and they seem to be warming up to him. There is rumors that the Giants were not high on Haskins, and he's been falling down. But I feel Daniel Jones will be the fourth quarterback drafted this year. Then we have number 18, the Minnesota Vikings. Ew. Minnesota Vikings. They've needed this position for a long, long time. And if this happens, they will be thrilled to the moon. And that is getting Mr. Jonah Williams, the offensive tackle from Alabama. They have needed offensive line help for a long, long time to protect their $84 million investment. Kirk Cousins, I'm sorry. I almost got that out of his trade base. $84 million. It's still funny, and it never won't be. Now, while Kirk Cousins will then get some extra protection, the best part is then you won't be able to blame the offensive line for why he's terrible. So I would love this pick for the Minnesota Vikings. but no bias there. Number 19, the Tennessee Titans. I feel like they're going to go offense here. While they could shore up that defense a little bit, looking at that Colts-Titans game at the end of the regular season and the fact that they were anemic on that offense, I feel like they're going to get their slot receiver here in Mr. A.J. Brown, the wide receiver from Ole Miss. We've talked about him on this channel. I think this guy has the potential to be a stud. Originally, I had him going much later in the first round, but I think if you're the Titans, you roll the dice and you get a pretty damn good playmaker here. Number 20, the Pittsburgh Steelers. Unfortunately, Ryan Shazier is obviously still recovering. My very, very best to him, and I would love to see him on the football field one day. I don't know how realistic that is, but the Steelers, they need to address linebacker, and they will here with Devin Bush, the inside linebacker from Michigan. We talked about him on this channel. Great speed, really efficient, decent in the passing game, but getting lots of tackles, getting in on it. And yeah, makes everyone look slow when he runs. And I feel like he's going to be, a 3-down player for Pittsburgh here. Now, spoilers, the next 3 are all going to be on the offensive line. I think the Seahawks, they're going to pick Andre Dillard, the offensive tackle from Washington State. The Seahawks might trade out of this, but again, the Seahawks, kind of similar to the Vikings, they've needed offensive line help. And while they have at least gotten some pieces over the past few years, I feel like they'll spend another first-round draft pick here. The Ravens, number 22, with Cody Ford, the guard/offensive tackle from Oklahoma. Cody Ford could actually go before Andre Dillard, but to protect their new guy, Lamar Jackson, I feel like they're going to say, hey, we should allow him to throw and open up some running lanes for him as well. So I feel like they're going to go Cody Ford. And then number 23, the Houston Texans. They're going to go with Garrett Bradbury, the offensive lineman from NC State. Again, protect their quarterback, protect Deshaun Watson after having a disappointing year last year. They're going to hope to rebound and be the dream team that everyone knows that they may be able to be. J.J. Watt deserves a freaking Super Bowl ring. Come on, Houston, get with it. Number 24. Oh my God, Raiders are back again. And who are they going to pick? Well, Gruden don't got his running back, but now he's about to get his running back, and that's Mr. Josh Jacobs, the running back from Alabama. A guy coming out who had less carries in 3 years than Saquon Barkley had after 1 season. But again, that's not necessarily a bad thing because the opportunities he has gotten, he's made the most of them. He's effective in the passing game, obviously in the running game as well. Able to hit those holes before they close. That's what she said. And in addition, not a lot of wear and tear on him because he's relatively healthy because he was a rotational back. But still on top of that, still lauded as like the number 1 running back within this draft. So I feel like Gruden's going to get him at 24. Number 25. Originally, I had them taking a cornerback here. But I feel like they're going to address that offensive line, and they're going to go with Dalton Reisner here, the offensive lineman from Kansas State. To, again, the Eagles are a pretty damn good team. They got a lot of depth, especially when Carson Wentz can stay healthy, and I feel like this is just going to help keep their quarterback healthy. Number 26, the Colts could always use some help on that defense. Their offense, they could do things with Andrew Luck, but they also need a pass rush, for the love of God. They're going to go to defensive tackle here, Dexter Lawrence, though, from Clemson, to help with that running game, obviously, and then he's also pretty effective within the passing game. Number 27, the Oakland Raiders. Oh, man, deja vu. I feel like they're going to go with Greedy Williams here, the cornerback from LSU. Originally, I had them going with a different cornerback, but Greedy Williams, I feel like he's a Gruden guy, and that they're going to, he has a lot of upside. They're going to take a shot at him. Obviously, did pretty well for LSU. Very handsy, like my uncle, but other than that, I think he has the potential to be a good player, and obviously the cornerback depth this year isn't really that great, and I feel like they'll take a shot on Greedy Williams. Number 28, the LA Chargers, another team that is just full of depth. I'm going to go out on a ledge here and say that they're going to pick up Jeffrey Simmons, the defensive tackle from Mississippi State, a guy who should be a top 5 draft pick, but obviously destroyed his ACL, most likely not going to play this year. Hopefully we'll get back next year, but if the Chargers are willing to roll the dice on this, considering they do have a damn good team, I feel like this will pay dividends for them. And while they have to, it's not a short-term investment, it's a long-term investment for their future. So I feel like they're going to go with Simmons here. Number 29, the Chiefs, another super-duper depth team. They're going to go with Tremont Jones, the defensive tackle for Ohio State, to shore up that run game, because good God, like when the Patriots were running all over them, I feel like this is something that is needed for their team. Number 30, the Green Bay Packers. I mentioned before that they could go offensive line here, but I'm going to say nay. And while some of you may disagree that he is not the best safety in the draft, there's a reason I'm going to go with Nasir Adderley here, the safety from Maryland. And that's because the man can play safety or cornerback, a position of need for the Green Bay Packers on either end. And so my argument is, if we're talking about Josh Jackson potentially moving to safety, well, maybe we can have Adderley move down to quarterback, or they could just stay in their respective positions. The point is, this guy's a hybrid player that can play both of them. While he is inconsistent, has some issues, I think that he can grow, and especially if he's able to play opposite Adrian Amos, I think that will just benefit everybody on the Green Bay Packers. Then moving on to the LA Rams at 31. They're going to go with offensive line here. Chris Lindstrom. Again, they were this close from winning the Super Bowl. The only thing that got in the way was the scoreboard and scoring points. So I feel like they'll just shore up that offensive line. They've lost a guard and a center, so get some more depth back there. And then finally, at number 32, the Empire, which is an insult to Darth Vader. I'm going to have the Patriots go with Noah Fant, the Iowan tight end. And again, they could go a bunch of different directions here. And even though they just signed Austin Seferian-Jenkins, I feel like he's a Band-Aid, and he is not going to fill the hole that Gronk left in Brady's heart. Fant has a lot of speed, needs to work on his blocking, needs to work on his drops, but we all know that Bill Belichick is going to turn him into a Hall of Famer. Like, who are we even kidding? Who are we kidding? Bill Belichick could call me up, and somehow I would be a competent football player with the New England Patriots. I hate them so much. But let me know what you think down in the comments below. What do you like? Yeah! And what do you like? No! Let me know what you think. And thank you for your patience for this coming out so late. You can always find me at TomGrossiComedy.com, TomGrossI Comedy, at TomGrossiComedy on all the social media you see below. Check out podcasts on SoundCloud, iTunes, Google Play Music, and of course here on YouTube. We're doing it 5 days a week until the draft. Next week, we'll do a 7-round mock for the Green Bay Packers. But thank you so much for watching. I'm Tom Grossi. And as always, go Pack Go.